Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinay Agarwal. I am Partnership Engineering Manager at JFrog. Our partnership team is responsible for integrating with all the products in the DevOps ecosystem. I have 2 decades of experience in technology, wearing various hats in various kind of companies, startups to Fortune 500s, and adventures in various countries and so on. 4 years ago, I discovered Docker and Kubernetes, and I thought it's going to change the world, and I wanted to deep dive into it, and that's when I started on my DevOps journey. And I'm going to walk you through Kubernetes and Kustomize today. So let's get started. Our agenda today is introduction, which we did just now. So I will talk about a little bit about Artifactory and what is JFrog platform. And then we will dive deeper into Helm and Kustomize. And I'll also walk through a demo where I will demonstrate all the things I talk about. Talking about JFrog Artifactory. JFrog Artifactory is a platform where we are able to, JFrog is a platform where we are able to it's a repository store for all binaries. Essentially, your source code goes into a source code control system like GitHub, but once you build it, where does it go? You need to manage these binaries, versions, and so on. And it stores 27 different type of packages. So that includes anything from NPM packages, Docker images, C++ Conan packages, and so on. There's a complete list. I will not walk through the whole list. And it also stores dependencies. Essentially, when you download, the dependencies are also stored there. And it is compatible with all the clients like NPM or Docker client, or build servers, clouds like Amazon, Azure, and Google, etc. So it's fairly well integrated into the ecosystem. And then we also not only have Artifactory, which is our flagship product, we have a complete DevOps platform. In this complete platform, we have here Artifactory that I talked about. We have another product called X-Ray. X-Ray scans for all the dependencies to make sure, number one, there are no vulnerabilities, or it gives you a report of vulnerabilities so that you are not shipping a vulnerable product to your customers. Secondly, it also scans for all the licenses in your dependencies so that you make sure that you are not violating any third-party licenses. For example, if you are distributing GPL license-based product or using a GPL-based dependency, you have to make sure that your code is also open source. So that kind of compliance. So essentially, it makes your legal team happy and your security team happy. Then we have pipelines, which is same as CI/CD platform. So this is a newly released product earlier this year, where you can do builds and deployments. We have mission control and Insight, which is a dashboard on top of all these products to see analytics. And then we have a distribution and edge nodes, which is once you're ready to distribute your packages, then you can do a global distributed CDN network of your own and deploy these products or packages or libraries. So this is a complete DevOps platform where you can do end-to-end building and deployment and distribution on this platform. But coming back to our Helm and Kustomize, what this webinar is about, let's talk about Helm first. So what is Helm? So Helm is a templating engine, which essentially means that if we have a variable, we are able to substitute variables. I'll give you an example. So here we have a YAML file to deploy into Kubernetes. But in this file, if you see, the license is hard-coded. The license may vary from one customer to another customer. So we do not want to hard-code the license into the YAML file. So we will templatize the whole YAML file and say that pick up the license from the values file, and values can be dynamically pushed into at the deployment time. So this is essentially what Helm does. It lets you introduce variables into YAML files so that everyone can supply their own variables, licenses, secrets, and various other things during deployment time. And they may also vary from production dev environment to staging to production, etc., because you may have different databases and so on. So this is, in a nutshell, what Helm does. Now, for advanced charts, this leads to a lot of parameterization. We will see an example of this when I do hands-on session. But basically, because it is hard to know what every customer may want, so you essentially want to parameterize as much as possible. So this leads to sometimes over-parameterization. And sometimes even that is not enough. Then how do you make changes if that is not enough? Again, we will see an example of that in our hands-on session. But the result, the third, which is the base problem that I see with only using Helm, is that it introduces a manual upgrade process. So let's say I use Artifactory charts supplied by JFrog, and I make one change into those charts. So I have two options. Either I ask JFrog to make those customizations, which may not be possible because if we have 100 customers, it is not possible to introduce changes that are needed by 100 customers. Or a customer can fork the charts and create their own version of charts. So they can use that to deploy, but what happens when JFrog releases the next version of charts? Now you need to make these changes all over again from the beginning. So this makes it a manual process and is not automatable. So we will see how we can automate this process. Now let's talk about Kustomize. What does Kustomize do? So it's a overlay engine. It is not a template engine, but overlay engine. What that means is that it can take a YAML file. Let's look at some of the changes it does. So in this file, I want to introduce some labels and make some changes into the template. So what I will do, I take this template, I apply a couple of customized files on top. In one, I am saying introduce a label. In the other, I am actually changing the string that will be used as inside my pod. And then I have a resulting file. And now what that does is I'm able to put layers on top of the base file or base charts. So I do not really need to touch the base charts. So if we go forward here, so what if you see, I take version V1, I apply my changes, and I'm able to deploy. Both these stages can be automated, which means that when I get the next version of charts from JFrog, my automation continues to work. The same changes will be applied and deployed. Now I'm able to automate the process without forking the charts into and creating my own version of charts. And this process can also be used for other charts, maybe X-ray charts or even other third-party charts. Because in production environment, you probably or quite likely have same kind of changes you want to make. You want to introduce some labels, you want to add some metrics, etc. So this is orthogonal, what we call in aspect-oriented programming as orthogonal cross-cutting concerns. So we can do the same kind of thing in Kubernetes using Kustomize. So this is about Helm and Kustomize. We are going to see all this in demo now. So let's move over to our demo time and see how this works in practice. So give me a second to share my screen, and then we will go from there. Excellent. Here we are. So what we are going to do, I have right now no files here. So first thing I'm going to do is create a base empty Helm chart. So I say Helm create hello world. This creates a tree structure, which is a base of Helm charts that I need. Because I'm going to be using my own values and my own templates, I do not actually need most of these files. So let's get rid of these files. That I do not need. Now I'm left with a very basic structure of a Helm chart. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a YAML file to deploy a pod. To do that, I'm going to cheat a little bit and copy some code so we do not waste time typing our code. Let's see what we did here. So I'm going to show you what I created. It's a pod created by, let's say, JFrog, and in which it's one container. The container is Alpine container, and when I run it, it's going to simply echo what my name is, and I work for JFrog. And employee name will come from a values file. So let us create a values file as well. And I'm going to copy the code a little bit so that we do not make a mistake here. Here we go. So I create my values file as employee name Gary. And if you see here, I substitute .values.employee name. It will pick up from the values file and deploy into production. So let's deploy it into production, which is very simple. We do helm install hello world, and we can name it hello world. There we go. So Helm has installed it into our Kubernetes cluster. Let's see what the value is. So we are going to do kubectl logs -f hello world and say my name is Gary and I work for JFrog. So far, so good. So our Helm chart works. But there is one problem in this Helm chart. The problem is that while different employees can substitute their names, but what if we supply this chart to different companies? They want to templatize or change the name of the company as well. But the problem is that this value has not been templatized. This is hard-coded. .values.employee name is picked from values, but the name of the company is not picked from values. So again, as I talked about, what solutions do we have? We have a couple of options. Either we go back to JFrog and say that we want to templatize this string as well and ask them to make these changes. But you never know if that's possible, because sometimes the changes we want to make, the company may not want to make, or the company may be too busy, or they may have a backlog of a few months, or maybe they are just not responding, so on and so forth, or maybe do not want them to tell them the kind of changes may be proprietary. So there are various reasons why you may not want or may be able to ask the company to make these changes. So this is where Kustomize comes into picture. So we are going to now use Kustomize to make these changes ourselves without making changes into the base charts. So let's do this. We are going to create a Kustomize file. Again, I'm going to steal a little bit of code from my cheat sheet here. Let's see what we did. So I am going to cat template, cat Kustomize. This is my file. What this file says is that go to the file hello world template and pod.yaml, find a pod named hello world, and replace this string, which is in spec containers args, and change the value to this. So here I am basically making the company name templatized as well. So to make this work, we are going to, let's see what changes we did. So first I'm going to see what value I had, and then I'm going to say, oh, I did not create this yet. Hold on, let me create this file. So when I do customize build, it will take this customized file. It will take this pod.yaml file, apply these changes, and give me a new file. So let's create this. Now I have a new file. Let's cat that file. So in the new file, if you see in the old one, I work for JFrog, but in the new file, it is templatized now. So now I have changed the charts without actually creating a version, and this is automatable. That whenever a new version of chart comes, I simply apply these transformations or overlays, and I will be able to make these changes. So next thing we are going to do is we are going to create values file so that we also supply a company name. So let's do that. There we go. Now I have a values file where I see that I'm supplying an employee name, and I'm also supplying my company name, which is startup1. So let's now run this again and see what happens. We are going to delete our old chart and going to install again. Helm install hello world, hello world. Okay, let's delete it again. Okay, we are going to manually delete it if that's the problem. Helm ls. Okay, now we do not have that pod. We are going to install it again. We have some, oh, I know what the problem is. The problem is that we have hello world templates. Here, I created a new pod definition to show what are the changes. I did not delete the old one. So let's delete the old one first. So we are going to delete the chart that we installed. We are going to delete templates pod.yaml, which is the old version. So we keep the new version, and we are going to install Helm charts again. There we go. So now we have Helm charts. Let us see what the values are here in hello world. There we go. My name is Chris, my company name is startup1. So essentially what we saw, we are able to overlay a piece of our own logic on top of the charts that were coming out of some third party like JFrog. We are going to do next thing. Our next thing is that we are now going to see one more change that I'm going to apply. So, and while doing this, I'm going to show you a little more capability of Helm as well as Kustomize. What I want to do is when I now apply this chart in my production environment, I want to add some metrics to it. So let's try to apply some metrics to it. I'm going to process this hello world chart into a file. Let's say podprod, cat podprod. So this is the chart where already the values are filled in. It's a YAML file now. In this YAML file, I want to add some labels. So let me create some code here, and we'll see what this code is. So what I'm doing is that I am saying that I want to apply a label called metrics, called level 1 metrics, and resource that it should process is podprod.yaml. This is the file that we just created by processing the Helm templates into a post template processing. So we have now this file, and in this file, if you see, I do not have a label called metrics. So I want to apply that. For that, I created this customization file, which is going to add my changes. So let's do this. I am going to build it and see if all my changes are applied. So here we go. So now if you see here, it has added metrics, a new label called metrics level 1. Now simply I can install it again. I will do Helm delete hello world, delete the charts, kubectl create -f pod prod 2.yaml. It's created. So let's see kubectl scribe pod hello world, and I'm going to route through less so we can see. So here, if you see, it has added a label metrics into level equal to level 1 into our deployment. So this way, in our production, when we have to add metrics or logging or any other kind of changes, we can also use Kustomize here. Again, note that we did not change the base file, which was our Helm chart. We processed the Helm chart into a YAML file, then we applied our changes, and then we deployed into production. This whole process is again automatable. So our upstream compatibility is not broken. We can continue to take new versions of the chart given by a third party, apply our changes, and deploy into production, all automatable. Next thing we are going to do is let's look at real world problems. So to look at real world problems, I am going to go into bring a file here. So let's look into actual Artifactory charts. In our Artifactory charts, first thing I want to show is that this is a ingress.yaml file which we are using. In this, if you see, there is almost every line is templatized because we want customers to be able to have their own labels, have their own annotations, have their own port, and so on and so forth. To achieve this, we have templatized almost every line of this. Second problem in this I see is the metrics label is not available, and that cannot be applied unless you fork the charts. So this is where the power of Kubernetes comes in. If you want to use Artifactory charts and want to apply your own labels or have to make changes which are particular to your environment or your company, you can use Kustomize. We will do that a few minutes from now. Let me also walk through a few other things. Third thing that I want to mention is the complexity. If you see, because we are trying to serve every customer, we have actually templatized every string, and there are if-else values if the customer wants to create a ingress or not. So overall, the file complexity increases without using Kustomize. This is where Helm and Kustomize together make a lot of sense, where we only make changes that are core to the chart, but any customer-related changes can be moved to a customized file so customers can apply their own changes. Second file that I want to show you is a license secret file. In this file, if you see, it's basically essentially, which we can see in Ingress also. So let us say you want to make some changes in your charts. Now, you cannot test if that one change made the impact because there are such a complex logic, you cannot go one by one. Helm either installs all of it or none of it. But with Kustomize, you can say, I want to apply change 1 and see my charts still work. Then you apply change 2. And so debugging and development becomes easier. And the last thing I want to mention here is that it also makes it very flexible because even if there is some pieces missing in the chart, they can be added. For example, a new construct called runtime is introduced now in Kubernetes. But unless the vendor, for example, JFrog charts, actually account for it, you will not be able to use a different runtime. But using Kustomize, you will be able to use a new runtime, and so on, right? So let's solve a real-world problem. What we are going to do, we are going to look at Artifactory stateful set. And as I mentioned, there is not a way to introduce a label like environment equal to prod. So what we are going to do, we are going to add two labels into this. One is environment equal to prod, and one is metrics equal to level 2 metrics. So two things we want to do. To do these two things, let's start installing our charts. So we are going to go back to our console. But before I go back, we need to find Artifactory charts. Let's find our Artifactory charts into in our chart center, for example. So chart center is again a new product launch. Nidra will talk about that, but let's find Artifactory charts, Artifactory. And here we have, these two are deprecated. Let's go to third chart. We have these charts available. Let's start working on these. So we have to add this repo here. You can see both of them. Let me make the screen a little smaller so we can see what's going on. Then we are going to do Helm repo update. And it's going to pull all the charts from the repo. So it has pulled all the charts. Next thing that I want to do is I want to process these charts into a post-processing of Helm. So let's use this command. So again, Helm template command. I use Artifactory charts from our chart center, and I process them into a file called artifactory.yaml. Here we have the file. So if you see, I want to show you. This file is 5,300 lines. So that tells you how complex this chart is, and changing and testing this chart is not necessarily trivial. But Kustomize would make it easy. That's what we want to do. So let's go into Artifactory charts. And what I want to show you is that here we have app label, chart label, release, and heritage label that we saw even in YAML files. But we do not have a way to add two new labels. So that is what we are going to do. Earlier, we are going to create a customization file. So again, I'm going to cheat a little bit and get a piece of code here. There we go. So I created a customization file. What it does is take the resource artifactory.yaml that we just created now. We are going to add two labels, environment equal to prod and metrics level 2. In prod, we want a different level of metrics. So we want to deploy this. So let's see what we have running. kubectl get pods. I think we deployed something. So let's delete that. kubectl delete hello world. Delete pod. Hello world. There we go. Next thing we are going to do is now there's one more thing I want to show you. In this case, I will not use Kustomize command, but I will use kubectl command. kubectl has a built-in functionality to use Kustomize using flag -k. When you specify flag -k and dot, it's going to look for a customization file in current folder. In current folder, in this customization file, it says, look at the artifactory.yaml file and make these two changes. And also note that in this case, because we are not specifying what particular object to select, it's going to apply these labels on every single object. That is exactly what we want, that we should mark every object as production so that we do not accidentally delete it, and our other monitoring software knows that these are prod. And also the metrics, our metrics tool knows that this is level 2 metrics on these objects. So kubectl create -k will install Artifactory with these labels. So let's install it. And it has created all these objects. So let's see what pods have been created. kubectl get pods. It is creating 3 pods. There is an Nginx, there is a database, and there is a Artifactory. But what we actually want to see is that the labels. So kubectl describe pod. We're going to use this pod, and let's route through less so we can watch it. Here, once we see that the pod has been installed, if you say environment equal to prod and also metrics equal to level 2 have been inserted at runtime. So now we are also able to use Kustomize using kubectl command itself rather than Kustomize command. So it is built into the support of Kustomize is built into kubectl. So this is how we solve real world problems. That is, if you cannot fork the charts or do not want to fork the charts, or the vendor is not providing exactly what you need, you are able to insert things on your own or overlay your own objects and labels on top of the chart. Kustomize is very flexible. You can change any part of the YAML file, not just labels, but we also edited strings. What this comes down to is that when you are using Artifactory or other JFrog products, you are able to make the changes that you need without JFrog having to make those changes or waiting on JFrog to do the changes for you. And you do not even need to fork the charts. You will be able to take upstream, new versions of upstream charts and continue to deploy into your environments in an automated way. So this is how we take Helm and Kustomize and Artifactory charts or other charts, and we automate the complete end-to-end process. So this is our demo so far. And let's go back into our presentation. So that was all that we wanted to show you today. So now it's the time for question and answer. So please feel free to type question and answers in the question and answer widget, and I will read out the question and I will reply to that. Okay, we have a question, which is, does Kustomize have chart repos just like Helm? So the answer to that is that Kustomize does not need a repo. Kustomize works with every other YAML file or Helm repo. Because most of the changes or overlays that you want to do are customer specific, it does not make sense to create a repo specifically for Kustomize. Kustomize is for you to make your own specific changes on top of other Helm charts or other repos. Okay, we have one more question. When should we use Helm and when should we use Kustomize? This is a very good question, and I tried to mention that a few times, when we should use which one. But let me be more clear on when we should use these products. So basically, the way I see that is that when we have to make product changes, things that you want to, for example, in Artifactory, things that we want every customer to have. Let's say we want to create a ingress controller or some kind of logging support, then it should be a change in the Helm charts. Or if you want to make a change that is in all your environments, it's probably good to make change into your Helm charts. But when you want to modify either third-party charts like JFrog charts, or you want to make changes which are environment specific. For example, we showed metrics level 1 or metrics level 2, or environments dev or environments prod. When things vary by environment, then you should use Kustomize on top of Helm. So Kustomize is good for cross-cutting concerns or overlays on top of Helm. Helm is good for templatizing things that are needed by default in all environments. So that's the distinction that I make. But there's no hard and fast rule. Whatever works in your environment and makes your process automated, you can essentially balance the two. You can also use Kustomize before applying Helm. We actually saw that in one of the examples, initial examples I presented. We changed the template string to add the company name. So we can also apply it before Helm. We can also apply it after Helm. So essentially, a very flexible product. We have one more question. Does Kustomize work on all type of YAML files or just Helm charts? So this is a very good question as well. Kustomize does work on all YAML files. It does not know which is a Helm product or not, and it does not look for a chart. All it needs is what changes you want to make and which files or directories you want to make these changes in, and it would overlay on top of those YAML files. We have one more question. Just like kubectl apply -f URL, can Kustomize install resources from the web? That is correct, it can. So because Kustomize is built into kubectl, it is just one more flag. So if you use kubectl apply -f a URL, if you add -k into that, it would take those URLs and then process those URLs. So yes, you can install from the web as well. My next question we have, what is the best way to learn Kustomize? Can you recommend any blog posts or books? I have been looking and everything seems to be a year old. This problem is a valid problem, and I face that as well. Because Kustomize is so new, there are not a lot of tutorials or books available. I had to find a lot of blogs and read a lot of blogs. So while there is not a central resource, I would say read a lot of blogs on how to use Kustomize and work through examples. And after about 5 or 10, you would get very comfortable with it. So this is the best way to do this. Okay, so we are waiting another few seconds for more questions. Feel free to ask more questions. Okay, looks like we are out of questions.